to the must-have classics, where we restore history one classic at a time. Welcome back to Must Have Classics. I'm Nick, and today we are back on my 1969 Mercury Cougar.
No, are these Cougars?
Now, if you haven't checked out the last two videos on this car, I suggest you do. In the first video, we got it torn down, did a walk around on it, and then started stripping it down to bare metal. And in the last episode, we got the front suspension out of it and pulled the motor and transmission. So now we're gonna keep moving from there. This episode, first thing we're gonna do is take care of the rust over here on the battery apron in that area. Now, normally I would probably just replace that entire apron, but the quality on those is not that great. Yeah, they're cheap, but I'd rather just build a new piece out of some thicker gauge metal and be done with it. So that's what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna start with this, and then from there, I'm gonna start filling on all the holes where the starter solenoid is, and all that. And then, let's see, I'm gonna fill in the hole for the wiring, because I'm gonna drop that down lower when I put in that new wiring harness. Master cylinder, it can come out. Fan motor, I'll go ahead and pull it out for now. I don't think I'm gonna end up filling that hole. I think I'll just put in that fan motor back in. And it doesn't look that bad. I haven't decided. This may change by the end of this video. And then I need to go ahead and get this part. And then we'll get all of this cleaned up on each side and get that front suspension in, so we can get this thing back on four wheels and on the ground. And then most likely we'll get this engine bay painted, possibly this episode, if not soon after, once I figure out the motor. My biggest plan today is to get this done so I can get the outsides done, so I can get that front suspension in. So all we can do is get going. Like I said, first thing we're gonna do is replace this. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it right through here, down, all the way down and over, because it's pretty well gone all the way here. Luckily all the front frame supports are all fine, but yeah, we'll cut all this out, build new. Should be pretty straightforward. And then from there I'll start getting all this filled in. So all we can do is get going, so let me start cutting this out. right, so I finally got that welded in. It took a little bit longer than I had hoped. The metal up top was pretty thin. I probably should have gone up closer up, but that would have been pretty difficult with that bend in there. So it's fine, it's welded in. I've got to do a little touch-ups over here on the side. You can see a little bit of light coming in there that I couldn't see when I was up over that side of it, but I'll take care of that. Other than that, went in pretty easily. Wasn't too worried about warping it because no one's ever going to see this, and I'd rather just get it in and be done with it than take 2 hours trying to weld this thing in. But that's an over exaggeration. It'd never take that long, but still, I wanted to go ahead and get it in quick. But that is way better than having that giant hole, so I'm happy with it. From here, I'm going to go ahead and get this voltage regulator out and then get all these, finish getting these out. I've got 7 holes to fill here, and then I've got these 2 here. I'll get these 2 out. Probably this one. I don't remember what goes here because I didn't take anything out of these 2. Obviously something was bolted in there, but I'll go ahead and fill them in. For now, if I need to bolt something else in there later, I will, or drill the holes. That's not a big deal. Then I've got the wire looms here, holes for that. I'll pull those out. So that should be no big deal. And then should be about it on this side. Let's see. Interesting. It's like an old pressure gauge. So from here, like I said, I'm gonna get this all out, start welding up these, finish welding up this couple of spots there, and should have this pretty much done pretty quick. Once I get it welded in, I'll grind that down, grind over here best I can, and then I'm gonna hit these with, probably get the old undercoat off with something else and go. We'll figure that out in a minute. But like I said, let's go ahead and get this going and see how well we can make this engine bay look. So another step done in this process for this video. I started grinding down that patch I did. I think I'm actually going to go through with seam sealer on the top and bottom edge and then smooth that out, because I'd rather have the strength of the weld instead of grinding it all down. But I did get this at least smooth here, so that'll work out. All the little patches I just did and all the holes, I'll go ahead and body work those later on, but I've got all those done. I do like the look of having this clean, like picturing it in my mind. I think I'm really gonna like this better than having all the holes drilled and having, wiring come across all that and all looking like that. So with all of this done, now I can start moving in, and there went my grinder, to the sides. I've got to grind down the back sides of these welds. This side is going to be a little bit more of a problem because of the original undercoating. I'll probably take my grinder and probably a screwdriver, see if I can knock that off first, and then take my grinder and get all this off. Then after that, I'll sand it down with my DA with 80 grit, so that way I can get this undercoated, so I can get this suspension. Now, I'd like to get it undercoated tonight so that tomorrow I can come in, set the suspension, and get it back on the ground. But we'll see how far that goes. The other side is actually pretty straightforward and easy because it doesn't have that undercoating to worry about, not nearly as many holes to drill and all that, or fill and work with. So This side will be super easy, won't take very long to do. The other side's gonna be the problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on the other side, see if I can get that as close as I can. Hopefully I can get some undercoating sprayed tonight. If not, we'll be back on this tomorrow and try to get this all done at the same time. So let me get started on the other side, and then we'll keep on moving on. Well, that was actually quite a bit easier and took a lot less time than I had thought it would. Now, a few things. In a perfect world, I probably wouldn't have used that brand of undercoating. I prefer the 3M, but they were out of stock everywhere when I tried to get it. I didn't feel like waiting to order it in, so I just went ahead and used that. Not a big deal. Just doesn't have the texture I usually like that the 3M has. The other problem is that it's sprayed brown instead of black, so then I had to go through and put some black paint over the top of it. It's still wet now. This will actually dry down to a flat black or matte black, and it'll look good. So I'm not really too worried about it. But from here, I've got to let this dry overnight. I'll be back tomorrow to do the front suspension. I've already finished the other side too. It actually came out pretty good as well. Move over here. So, this side didn't have to take nearly as much sanding or anything, so I didn't even worry about filming that. I just hit it with a DA real quick, and then blew it off, wiped it down, and then sprayed it. Couple things, the brake lines, I'm going to redo all those. I want brand new brake lines, because I would like to be able to stop instead of driving through every single thing I try to go to. So I'm going to pull all those out. That's why I didn't worry about them being sprayed, because I do want the contrast of having brand new brake lines in there. But I'll do that later. And when I do that, I'm going to run them down, farther down in the engine bay, so they're not sticking so far up and around. But I'll do that later on. Like I said, I'm just trying to get the front suspension done so I can start getting this thing back on the ground. So yeah, let this dry overnight, check back in, start building that front suspension. Should be pretty straightforward from there. Hopefully all that Fairlane suspension works, and have this thing back on the ground before we know it. So it's the next day, and I have to say I'm very pleased with how this is coming out. That flat black is exactly how I was hoping that would turn out. Other side looks just as good. It's got a little bit of that rubberized texture still to it, but that's fine. So from here I can finally start building that front suspension. I'm going to start with the upper control arms, think of the springs in. The shocks may not go in yet, because I've got to get this up here painted and then change this out. That'll end up masking out off the spring later on. Don't know yet. I'll figure that out. If the shock doesn't go in, it's not that big of a deal. So we'll see what I end up doing there. But I want to go ahead and get all this built. All the parts I have should fit. I do still have to get this lower arm out. That shouldn't be too big of a deal. It's probably going to be a little bit hard with how that's tied in. But I'm going to go get started on the other side because it's already torn completely apart. Sway bar will have to come out later as well. Then I've got to figure out the tie rod ends, whether I want to try to use Fairlane and get rid of the power steering, or go back with power steering and use this. Haven't decided yet. I mean, all of that needs to be replaced. You can see how bad a shape it's in. So I'll figure that out as I get going on this. More or less, I just need to be able to sit down on the ground with wheels. It doesn't have to steer quite yet. Let me start getting this front suspension in on the other side, and we'll kind of see where we want to go with everything else at that point. So let me get started. Well, that was something that was yet again way more of a pain than I had hoped it would be. Few things. One, I actually ended up cutting the spring because I couldn't get it compressed enough, and then I realized that I had kind of planned to do that anyways, to try to lower it a little bit in the front. It's not really going to affect that much, but still make it a little bit lower. So I went and cut that, and then I had forgotten that you have to keep the spring compressed to get the control arms in. So I finally had to do that again. So I finally just decided to turn the camera off and get some help and get it in. But I finally got this side done. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side next. But I'm gonna go ahead and do those off camera because I've got to get this video out, and it's just gonna be the same thing on this side. So I'm gonna get this side done. The next video, I think we're gonna start putting this thing back together and get the doors back on, the fenders back on, set the hood on, and start doing some of the custom work on it. Start working on the bumper, start working on the metal work. I've got to straighten out every single panel on this car because the fenders are pretty beat up, the doors are pretty beat up, and then of course this. Now I have been debating on this, what I'm gonna do. I still think I'm gonna do a quarter panel, but I might see if I can get in here and push it out, and then maybe I won't have to do a quarter panel on it. But I'm still have to do a bunch of metal work. At this point, I would just cut this out and put in a new panel. Of course, I'm gonna do the rust repair. We'll tackle that later though. Like I said, next episode, we're gonna get this thing back together here. Front suspension will be done by then, so it'll be back down on the ground, so that way we can finally start making this thing look a little bit better. But yeah, so that'll do it for this episode. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what you want to see us do to this car. The last video I mentioned color choices and all that. Still kind of up in the air on some of that stuff, so comment on that one or this video and let me know. Check us out on Facebook at Must Have Classics Rawls, RALLS, and Instagram at Must Have Classics. We'll be back on this one pretty soon. Also got videos coming out on the 49 Chevy pretty soon, and along with the Buick probably in the next couple weeks, and the Fairlane as well. So a lot of work keep going on, but that'll get this one done for now. So we'll see you in the next one, and remember, get those classics out and enjoy as much as you can.